When you look at marketing and sales, a lot of companies focus on, we need a powerful sales team, which you do, but you need a more powerful marketing team, because the marketing team, they're the ones that get the word out. And if we're doing it right and you get that word out and you're branding properly and you're putting in all that content, like I said in the beginning, you want high intent leads. So I'd rather get a request for something, 20 a week, as opposed to 100 a week. And they're high intent. And somebody said, usually at that point, they're basically ready to go. It's just a matter of, are they comfortable with you? And let the salesperson sell, not prospect.
Welcome to the Love Your Brand podcast. If you're looking for real conversations with real people, you're the right place. Let's go!
Guys, welcome, Scott. Born and raised in Boston.
Born and raised, still a Boston boy.
Born and raised in Boston. I can't even do the accent.
No, it's Boston. It's Boston. Kid, it's Boston. That's what it is.
Scott traded clam chowder for barbecue when he moved.
Am I allowed to kick in the Boston accent here and there? Because it does slip out, and I thought I got rid of it years ago, and every so often, usually when I have a drink or something. And
do you have any Canadian in there?
Canadian? No.
You said out.
Somebody said that to me before, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so.
I heard no Boston. I heard Canadian, eh?
You'll never hear me say A. Yeah, that's definitely for sure. But also, it's more like, listen, bro, we're going uptown. We're going to the bar, and just go down that road, bang a Yui, and you're there.
All right, so now
but I mean, to be a true Bostonian, I got to throw a couple swears into this, and I'm not sure how you deal with that on your show, if that's cool
right.
Or not.
Don't make my editing job too hard. Bleep it.
No, it's just part of it. And to my, to Susan, it's like, she's from down here, so it's, she calls it cussing, and up north they just call it swearing or maybe cursing. So
stop that cussing.
I'm like,
as Scott's talking, he brought me back to Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as he was talking about that. I start seeing highlights of that movie.
Obviously they wrote it, but to a Bostonian, when we see movies and they're in Boston, and especially someone from Boston there, maybe if you're from, I don't know, Canada, Texas, you wouldn't notice the difference, but authenticity. When you hear it, there are not that many people that can pull that off if they're not from Boston,
Yeah.
It's really cool. But those guys, they were great, some of my favorites.
So Scott, man, he's an executive marketing leader. Don't let the accent fool you. 20 years under his belt.
Pretty much.
Go figure.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we had a pre-call, and he hit us with kind of a surprise with having the Hair Club for Men franchise.
I was going to say, he looked surprised as you were talking about that, Jason. I'm like, where are you going with this?
No, I don't care. I'm cool with it. I'm totally cool with it.
Yeah, because I think
can't you tell? I mean, it came out good.
No, you're not only what is it?
For years, I'm not only a franchise owner. I'm not that. I'm also a client.
There you go. I remember that dude. on TV.
Sai. That's the guy I'm talking about. When I said we went to that radio station, and it's funny. People saw him on TV. They would think he was like a short guy. Sai was like 6'3", 6'4". He was huge.
Wow.
Tall, lanky. Yeah, great guy. Super guy. Passed away a couple years ago. Great guy.
How'd you get into that franchise?
I lost my hair very young, and it was 20. It was not a cool time to lose your hair. It wasn't. Sure. People weren't really shaving their heads yet, and I obviously that's how I was watching the commercials for years, because it was actually started at 18. I know this is funny stuff.
I'm laughing at Jason. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. And I became a client. Put up the money, became a client. Friends were loving it. They said, "Hey, would you be interested in working here? You're referring some people to us. That's great." And sure, did that for several years. Moved out to Chicago, ran the Chicagoland area, the 3 offices out there at the time. Came back and bought a franchise, half of it at least, in Rhode Island. And I was the on-site managing director, and my partner lived in DC. And, but he has like 13, 14, 15 franchises. He started with Side back in the day, and went out for 9 years, built it, from like, wow, 350,000 when I came in, because it was already existing, 350 annual recurring to about, after I sold it, about 3.5 million per year. I mean, Rhode Island's a small
That's
state.
impressive.
There's only so far you're going to get in a state like Rhode Island. But yeah, it was fun. But then I started seeing what was happening in marketing, because I was a marketing major in school and always loved it. Always testing and trying new things. But back then you couldn't do all that, digital testing and, get accurate numbers. You put an ad somewhere, put that phone number, repeat it 15 times. Hopefully somebody calls, it's a tracking number. It's like the best you could do, and now all of a sudden you can see emails and you can see data and you could wow, this is cool, and I finally said, I want to do this full time. This is what I want to do. So I was getting tired. So I sold it and yeah, jumped into it with no parachute, built it on the way down and just kept going as a consultant for years. And it was great. Just a lot of fun. And yeah, learned a lot from HubSpot. I'm not sure if you heard, HubSpot, learned a lot from them. They were putting out so much collateral at the time. You could just sit there and learn. There were no physical classes you could take,
Right.
it was just new. But it changes, everything. I mean, rapidly. I mean, you got to stay on top of this without a doubt. I mean, you look at marketing today and look at marketing even just 5 years ago, 3 years ago, forget 10, forget 15. I mean, night and day.
Well, I don't know your age, Scott, but from what you said, if
guess.
Hair Club for Men, for Men, you're saying you were in your 20s. Pretty much the internet did not exist or was just on the cusp of coming to market. So digital marketing was an afterthought. And I've said before on previous episodes, I saved a lot of my good books from college that I thought would be relevant one day. Marketing was one of those. And I opened it recently and looked at it and was like, there is nothing. I mean, how social media didn't exist, how there was no marketing, how there's no Google. I saw a reel lately. It was like, I'm officially older than Google. It's like some of these people that are saying that September 4th, 1998 was when Google was created. So these people are like telling their kids, hey, I'm older than Google. The kids are like, no way. Because they think all this stuff has always existed. But before we move forward kind of into what you're doing now with Hair Club for Men, so going from I think you said 350,000 annually to 3+ million. I mean, what would you attribute to the success there from a marketing perspective?
From a marketing perspective, we had obviously our national marketing. That's what we had, that we paid into fund all the franchises, and then we did local marketing, and local, it gave me more chances to try new things. And to your point about how early on in those days that digital didn't really exist, when it started to kind of creep up around 2008, 2009, I sat on the franchise council for a couple of years, and I was really trying to push. I'm like, we got to get away from this, direct response and focus on people that, email, and focus on video, and focus on, different things that we could try. Mostly at that point, it was more just like email. And they can request something from there. And, I just kept trying to push it. And then TiVo was coming out. I was like, oh, we got to push this on TiVo. And then,
wow.
I mean, I used to love TiVo, man. It was crazy. I'm a gadget geek. I am early adopter. I'm a gadget geek that way. But yeah, so
wow,
fun stuff.
Okay.
Did I just fall off track from a question you just had there? Or
no, I was asking kind of what attributed to success. So I heard direct response.
Oh yeah, so
marketing,
it was just
email marketing.
local. I mean, that's the one business where referrals really don't exist. They might a little bit, but no one's gonna go say, man, you're losing your hair. You got to do what I'm doing, that never happened. I mean, but some people would say, wow, your hair
See,
looks
that
great.
surprises me.
What?
Yeah.
I would think that
incentives
is a massive referral. So if somebody saw another man with a big bushy head of hair, like, hey, dude, what are you doing? Is it a shampoo? Is it this and that? And you say, no, actually, Hair Club for Men.
But it stayed in clients. I mean, I didn't care. I used to tell people all the time, I could care less, but people just regular off the street, that come in, they don't want someone to know, because that means they're attributing to their vanity or something, and that men shouldn't do this. Women should wear wigs, not men, not that it wasn't a wig, but it was just hair replacement. It was improving yourself,
So kind of some embarrassment around it.
Yeah, I would actually, and I became client, and there was an unwritten rule that if we're out, and when I first started, I was in Boston, down at downtown Crossing, and people that I was friends with, clients I'm friends with for years, they see you don't, you don't introduce yourself unless they come to you first, or say hi unless if they're with somebody, of course. But I've had people, it's like I'm walking on the street. All of a sudden I see someone coming to me and they just cross the street, it's just like, can't talk to you here. So yeah, we had a lot of fun, and I had a phenomenal staff. I mean, and I'm so pleased that so many of them are still there, whether they're in the office or went onto the corporate side or whatever. Yeah, we had a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Mm,
So
that's
yeah,
awesome. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's where you started cutting your teeth, right? And
Basically, I mean, can you imagine, like, you go to school, come out of school. I started working for American Express Financial. Um, Hated it. Just wasn't my cup of tea. Became a client at the hair club. They asked me to, work there. Talking to my dad, and I said, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be doing this. And he looked at me. He's like, I paid for 4 years of college. Do you work for a hair club for men? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, I mean, after that, he was very happy, of course, but it was just, I'm like, yeah, look at this. It's great, you know? So, yeah.
awesome, awesome.
That's fine.
And you,
Jason, we always talk about like the college thing, you bringing that up. And same thing for me, just not to get sidetracked, but like here I go get a degree. And I'm
Mhm.
still like waiting tables and bartending at the time, and you can make a lot of money waiting tables and
Oh, I
bartending.
did for years through
So,
college. Yeah.
my parents
Yeah.
are like, "Hey, go get a real job," kind of a thing, and it's like, I know that my entry level salary is not gonna pay for the food each month that I need, but bartending and waiting tables, they're like, "Well, what was the point of going to college?" Kind of a thing. And so
It
I can
was,
relate to that. I'm sure a lot
I
of our
still did
listeners can relate.
I did it my first year out of school while I was working. I still did some, but, then it gets to the point where it's like, it's enough because you do it at night. You finish at 10, 11, then y'all go for drinks, spend half the money you made. And, and
Exactly.
after a while it gets old, so
Absolutely. So
yeah.
what made you to maybe go to that next transition? So what made you sell the business or your franchise? You're part of that, and where did you go from there?
Like I said, I started just while I was there, and, I had the place running on, I don't want to say autopilot. I was always there. I was always there every day. I mean, I cut back some hours here and there, but I was just researching. I started to see things coming up, and social really wasn't, it was starting to creep up. I mean, Facebook was, still in colleges mostly, and, LinkedIn was popping up, and I just started to just, you know, research, and look at this, and look what can be done, and watch these webinars, and read things and read these blogs, articles. And, oh, I got to try that. And within a month, I backed into, um, you know, the company. You heard the name Foster Grant, so the old school sunglasses that are, the crappy sunglasses. They have big time subsidiaries, major buck subsidiaries, and they wanted this. Somebody said to me, "Listen, I got a guy. He's the VP of marketing at Foster Grant. They're based in Rhode Island," and he said, he wants to talk to you. I told him about you. So I walk in this guy's office, and again, also with that suit thing. And then I get there, and everyone's like in jeans, but whatever. Um, you know, and he said, "Okay, here's the deal. I need 3 websites. I need them, I guess, what do they call it? Optimized?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I need this. Now, I couldn't build a website come on. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I had to figure out a way. And I know I found these people and part of an agency, and just worked it out where, they built it out. They built everything out for me. I just worked with them on it. And then that kind of became a way of doing it for me, that I could focus on working with the clients and working and finding clients, and, helping them and advising them. And when things were going to be done, I outsource it. Some things I'd love to do because I always love to write, going back to school. So some things I would do, email, even some articles, to help them out. Obviously before AI, but yeah, that's kind of how it happened. I kept I did my best to kind of I learned this from somebody, to keep a tight velvet rope, like at a, you go to an opening or something, meaning I only wanted to deal with people I liked and that I wanted to work with. not people that were just going to cause me headaches and cause problems and, argue about this and that and everything else, so for a while it was great. Yeah, a lot of fun. And then I was consulting, and I've always done B2B, and a B2C company. I went in there. They, HubSpot was, like I said, I was an early adopter on HubSpot, so that was my main thing. I became a reseller for them, and I was helping them set up for HubSpot. And this was uh, a polar expedition company called Poseidon Expeditions. I'll give them a plug. Poseidon Expeditions. And, basically they sent people to the Arctic, Antarctic, stuff like that. And they said, would you be willing to work here full time? So yeah, why not? I was kind of tired of, just doing things, sitting at home, sitting at my desk and, working remote for everybody. And yeah, and I did that, and it just had a lot of fun. They sent me to the Arctic. They let me come home. It's like a expedition ship. You get off. It was phenomenal. Just a phenomenal experience.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it was fun.
Yeah.
That was
That
fun.
really is cool. Now, Scott, you
Yeah.
mentioned, so you're a marketing strategist and a fractional marketing leader, really believing, this is what I want to
Yeah.
highlight, really believing that
Sure.
marketing isn't a department, it's a company-wide culture. So can you comment on your philosophy there, what you mean by that?
Yeah, company wide. Traditionally it was marketing, sales. That's it. But I firmly believe that I ran into this platform, and it's called uh, employee advocacy. So this way, now that most people are on LinkedIn, other social networks, Twitter, whatever, that you know they can just automatically post things too, not on their own. I think they could, but you never get people to keep up with it. But you use a certain platform. The one I loved, and another plug, they were great people over there called Gaggle Amp, and we'd sit there and write all these little posts, and then it would pop up on their Slack or pop up on their Teams or even through email, and it said, okay, post is available for you, and it's like, do you want to post it? Meaning to their own page, not to the company page, because people don't look at company pages usually. I mean, they do for a minute, but the stuff it is, let's say hypothetically, which is very common, a sales guy, they're making calls, they're making, email, doing emails, doing everything, which of course, it's not a very, I think, good way to, get clients, because all it does is anger them. But in doing so, it's like, let's say, so you get an email and you say, well, let me just, take a second, look who is this person, and then they see, if they go online and they see this person hasn't posted anything in 10 months, and the last time he did was just to congratulate somebody, but they do see a regular thing about, they're posting about what they, what's going on and what they do. And, they could sit there now, you can sit there and like take that, do a quick rewrite on AI, so not everybody's the same, and it just expands company wide. It has to come from C-level. I mean, you can't just start at like marketing and sales. It has to come from C-level all the way down. It really, of course, has to be opt-in, and it just expanded reach. It expanded followers. They can get a hold of people. It creates the conversation. That's the whole thing. I mean, marketing is now all about the conversation. It's not
Yeah.
so much. I mean, SEO critical without a doubt, but people now they know websites are they know websites are sales. It's a sales tool. Of course, it's a sales tool. That's what we do. They blog, they blog, they blog, and in doing so, moving forward, people when they're researching, and I don't want to get to AI yet, but when they're researching, they don't go to the website. They might find one or two, but it's time for the companies to go to them and where they are. So getting on LinkedIn, posting on LinkedIn, a blog these days, and I'm sure these numbers. Yeah, it could be the best blog in the world, and they get shorter, whatever. Attention span, forget it. And it's like a 90% bounce rate almost. I don't, 90% bounce rate. So yes, it will help with SEO, definitely. But as far as them reading it, so put that content where they are. Put it on LinkedIn if they're, depending where they are. If it's video, put it on all video ones. Put it on Insta. Put it on whatever, and just get the stuff out there. And and I got this from other people. This is like something I created personally. I mean, it's something from reading and reading and reading. In the old days, we'd say, "How did you hear of us?" And you put boom, 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 and now and then we stopped that because like, oh, we have all these digital things and we can, follow attribution and how they heard of us. But now when it comes from like social and all, and then you get into dark social where it's like, people always say, what's dark social? It's almost like being invited to a private dinner party and talking to people and learning about things, people that you trust, people that you respect. And, that's how people are are finding out what they need and what they should use for their company and what they should use for their business. And it's, uh, when they're ready, it's like Gartner did a thing on this I think it was a couple of years ago, that 87%, I think that was the number, of all VPs and C-level execs do all their research before they even get to you. They might touch your page a couple times, but before they get to you. So when they do hit that demo request or speak to somebody or whatever, they're like 80% done. They know what they want. They're high intent. A company might normally get typically before that 100 leads. But now I'd rather a company get 20 high intent leads as opposed to, fishing out of those 100 MQLs that came in. And we can get into MQLs later and how I'm so against them these days. As opposed to searching, I'd rather them talk to potential sales that are close to selling. It shortens the sales cycle. It shortens everything.
So you're spot on with everything you're sharing. I think of like email and social media within the last decade of how there was such a focus on how big of following you can get, and where people were kind of equating success. Hey, I have this many followers on my social account, kind of a thing. But when we started off with social, when Facebook was the first one that kind of brought this, we have our friends and family and all that, and our list is getting bigger and bigger with all these people that are not our market. And then we launch businesses or products and we post it and we hear crickets and we don't get any sales because we don't have our market. And the same thing with email list. I've worked with people and they say, my email list is 100,000, is 500,000, that's all this. It's like, how many of those are qualified? Because you can blast out all that information to these people, but if they're not your market, if they're not qualified, if they're not ready to buy, it's pointless. And
it angers them. It angers people. I mean, even today, you get something that comes to you, it's like, oh, leave me alone. I got a big enough inbox as it is. Leave me alone. It's too much.
100%.
And I've run into companies where they'd say, well, we've got a great list. I'm like, a list of what? List of emails. And I said, cool. How did you
what
get
makes
them?
it great?
I mean, meaning, are they opt-in emails or are they just you purchase a list or what's the deal? It's a mix of everything. Okay, how far do they go back? 10 years. And I'm like, do you really think that they're going to have? I mean, ISPs were knocking them down left and right because they're blasting. And that term at the time, I forgot about that term. Email blast used to be like a shiver up my spine. Because they weren't targeted, they weren't, segmented. It just went up my spine. It was like, well, we're going to go do an email blast. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. Whether I'm in a company or not working with a company, or just, fractional, whatever, fractional kind of work, don't do it. Please don't do it. You're going to kill yourself.
What's interesting, Jason, I know you have a question, but just let me finish this thought. What's interesting about email, so you mentioned with Hair Club for Men doing email, and I won't say email blast because I don't want to send that shiver up your spine, but email was like one of the first digital type of opportunities we had for marketing, which worked well back then. And today, I saw a HubSpot survey a couple years ago. I don't know what it's at now, but email had the highest ROI over any marketing activity still present day, which was 4,200%. So for every $1 that was spent on email,
I saw
you
that.
could make $42.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So people still leverage email wrong, or they think email is dead. And what I like to communicate is like, email is not dead, but dead email is dead. And that goes into what you're talking about, to where we wake up, we pull up our phones and we're swiping, we're scrolling through, or delete.
Right.
But there are those brands that we choose to stay engaged with, that we don't mark off as spam, that there's valuable information. And so it's so interesting with email that it is so powerful, but today I think it's the most underutilized tool that can really move the needle in a business.
Yeah, it can definitely utilize it if they are opted into what you want. That's it. Because if you took out all those people that don't open the email, and the open rate is this, the click-through rate is this, if people are hitting the spam button, if people are doing all that stuff, it's going to kill you on one end, but there are people in there that you should focus on. Just, I'd rather send out a small targeted email campaign than just blast that out, just do that. But it's definitely underused. I agree. And too long. That's the other negative, is that I believe an email should be short and to the point, especially if it's, totally short and to the point. People don't, when I get an email, if it's got I got to scroll down 15 links in that email. Really? Who has time for that? What's the attention span these days? 6 seconds, if that, So, and if you're ADD, that goes down to 3. So, like for me at least.
And Scott, SMS is also reaching new heights as well.
Absolutely.
I can't forget that.
To a point, and it's annoying. Sometimes it's so annoying.
It's annoying, but let's face it.
Oh, it works because everybody looks at their text. Everybody, 99%.
Yeah. Talk about dark social. I think a lot of people that are listening, they're like, it's probably the first time they heard of dark social.
Right.
When I think of dark social, I'm constantly talking about brand equity, building a brand, legacy, investing in your brand that may not have the attributions to be able to properly identify it, right? Because the problem with dark social is you don't have attribution tags. You can't track it. We've been the last decade, we've been drilled by other marketers, right? Performance marketing. Then that has went down the funnel to businesses, the C-suite, and that's all they care about, right? Instant gratification. I want to know every dollar that goes out this is my return. That's not real. That's not a real equation, but yet everybody identifies with it, right?
Attribution models have changed totally with dark social, meaning it goes back to my point, what I said before, and to your point about, not being able to track this automatically or how many touches they've gone through. That or like I said early on, how'd you hear of us? And you didn't know if it was true or not true, and you still don't. But now I've suggested people go back and do that. So if you're posting, snippets for podcasts or snippets for, written content or whatever, heard from a friend, just a list, and they can tick off, where they heard you. So now you can say, okay, now we can look at it and say, well, no one's ticking off, TikTok or whatever. So let's stop posting it there. Even though a lot of B2B companies are on TikTok, but it's not working for us. So let's not post it there. Let's post it over there. And then we can get an idea where to focus our efforts,
Because it could show attribution level on a high level through organic, right?
Yeah.
Social media.
Yep.
HubSpot through email marketing, referral traffic.
Yep.
But a lot of it is just direct traffic. But you don't see the word of mouth, right? The SMS campaigns, the podcasts, the sponsored content, the PR, any events. So I constantly ask people, and I always, when I tell clients and partners, I'm always like, ask, even if you think because we've had things that come in and they're just like Google. And then you have a call with them and they're like, oh, no, we found you through ChatGPT.
Right.
Oh, right. They thought Google and ChatGPT were the same, right? And then vice versa, you've got this big pie of, I like to call them the non-engagers, right? That follow you for a year and then pop into your DMs or finally hit you up on your website. And then you don't know unless you ask them. They might look like a paid traffic, a PPC. That's just how they came in after they established the 20 touch points.
Exactly. And to that
visibility.
Point, that's, you just hit it. To that point, like in HubSpot, you can sit there and track and then drill down a couple levels also, maybe. But somebody says, oh, paid ad. Oh, great. It's working. Paid ad is working. And no, that could have been their 20th touch. It just, maybe they were looking for you. Sometimes paid ads come up at the same time as organic. We all know that, and they hit the paid side and that's how it comes in. But that's not really how they found you. That's not how they got to you. They went through all this other stuff. They could have been researching you for months, but that's how they finally got to you. So asking is critical.
So often we forget, we're all consumers, and we buy when we're ready to buy. We don't
Right.
buy when you're ready to sell. And I think that's
Exactly.
what too many businesses misunderstand
Yep.
because they throw a few things out there, try to see what sticks, but they quit too soon because, as
Yes.
Jason's sharing, they don't understand that the nurturing process is hitting them from all angles. It's like you said with blog, a blog attention span. Nobody goes anymore and reads them. The primary purpose, if I build a blog for somebody, is to help SEO to the site to where, you're getting hit from all angles. You get that email, you go to a trade show, you see the brand, you see a flyer, you see a brochure, you get a SMS text, you hit all those things. And at some point after enough has been done, because we only buy based on we have a problem where we're looking for somebody to provide that solution. And we don't always look for the best solution. It's all about that solution is top of mind when the problem exists. And so when it comes there, it's like, who have I been thinking about that knows I need this? And if you're not hitting them over and over and being top of mind every step of the way, they're just going to go with the person they remember, not the person that offers the best product or the best price.
It's like, as to your point also, it's, like you said, when they're ready to buy. That's what it comes down to. That we need something. We're not sure exactly what we need, but we're going to research it. We're going to find out what we need. And what's the first thing you do? I mean, even going back to a day, you want to go to a restaurant, and you say to a friend, have you been to any good Italian restaurants lately or something? It's like, oh yeah, you got to go to this one. Definitely got to go to this one. On the opposite end is that, some people say, oh, I went to this greatest restaurant last night, and they might tell a couple people. But now, of course, with like, Google reviews and Yelp, I mean, if they have a bad experience, and bad experiences vary for a person, they'll slam it to anybody they can think of. That's what it's all negative. So if I am getting bombarded with emails from a company, I'm going to have a bad taste about that company. And when I really, maybe in a year, I start researching what they were maybe sending me the stuff about a year ago, I'm going to look at that company and say, I don't want to talk to them. I just don't want to deal with them. Yeah.
And Scott, what I found is the stickiness that's a hard conversation to have with brands and businesses and C-suite, and invest $500,000 into brand equity this year and gain fruit and traction from that in year 2 and 3. They don't want to hear that. It's the truth. You're building a brand, you're playing the long game. That's why when we come into contact with companies and they want instant gratification. I'm not saying performance marketing, there's not a place for it, but you've got to, if you just focus on that, say you've got a lot of companies now that just buy leads, right? We'll just buy leads all day long.
I would never, ever, ever. I mean, if somebody said they'd buy leads, it's like,
there was a model. I just saw a
Yeah.
post. It was like, hey, instead of helping a client build a brand and having a headache and having to nurture them and educate them and really understand their brand, just sell them leads, blah, blah, blah. And it's a scalable model for marketers, right? Next thing you know, marketers are selling leads. It's like, give me a break. They're not building a brand. It's like building a house without a foundation, right? The minute those dry up, you've got another company that's invested into their brand, into their culture, right? Into their presence online through multimedia outlets and everything else. That's going to stand the test of time. That's going to be where the road starts splitting.
Exactly.
Right?
And
Exactly.
in our pre-call with you, Scott, you had mentioned, I like how you said companies often view marketing more as a luxury. And they're quick to cut their marketing budgets, like during the economic challenges. I mean, the three of us are marketers, so we deal with the clients who are constantly having that performance mindset to where I'm going to give you 1, 2, maybe 3 months of my money to do marketing, and you're going to prove that it works. And if it doesn't work, we're the problem. We didn't do it right. We're a bad agency, kind of a thing. Because most people, you would probably agree, if you pick up a client, they likely had a bad experience with another agency. And I put bad experience in quotes because they say, hey, they didn't deliver, they didn't produce results, because we're in that performance mindset. But it goes into this point of they look at it as a luxury, and their first gut instinct is, hey, we'll cut marketing, when that's actually the last thing that you want to cut. And Jason's point is that it takes time to build that brand equity, because a lot of people, I don't think businesses truly understand the difference between marketing and branding. They see the gray area of the two merging together, but they can't see the black and the white of how different they are and how they work together, because you have to build that brand foundation. And to Jason's point, put in the brand equity to where you get out there. Now you're doing some marketing things, and it's a slow up and down. Marketing is the long play, but we want everything right now. If we don't see those results, I'm cutting you off, Scott, and I'm going to go find somebody else that promises to deliver those results.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it gets
if
tight.
an agency is honest, if a person is honest, and I mean, of course, people will, to get business, yeah, I mean, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it rock, But the first thing I would always tell people is that you better be willing to put the time into it, and be patient, because this is going to take, on the low end, 6
Time and
months
patience.
to start to really maybe,
Low
crack a
end.
dent, and then
Yeah.
a year to start seeing some real results. And if you're not committed to that kind of time frame, don't waste your money.
Yeah.
Don't waste your
Setting
time.
expectations up front.
Exactly. Set that expectation.
And
Always set
even-
that expectation,
and-
because you never
and-
know. I mean, one thing that bothers me a lot of times, talking and working with some CMOs, is that they're afraid to try new things. They're used to the tried and the true and what they felt worked. Maybe it worked for, because maybe it was a couple of years ago and it worked. So let's keep doing it. Or they, how many MQLs you can get, marketing qualified leads. In the beginning, okay, that hair club, what is it? Hair club marketing funnel, HubSpot marketing funnel. I can't believe I just said that.
That's amazing. I'm going to clip that.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. That's on the blooper reel, right?
There you go.
The HubSpot, the funnel, marketing qualified, sales qualified, but then companies get into, how many MQLs do you got? How many MQLs do you got? Now, an MQL in HubSpot, for example, you set up different scoring things, or any other platform, and when it hits a certain level, it's okay, this guy is now an MQL. But all of a sudden, the higher ups are saying, we need more MQLs, we need more MQLs. So now, someone downloads an ebook, which I think should go by the way of, also the dinosaur, just get rid of it. But they will sit there and say, oh, we downloaded an ebook, call them, get them on the phone, give it to sales, Well, I know sometimes I can't sleep. I'm up at 2 a.m. I'm on my phone. I see something. Oh, it looks interesting, hit it, download it. I get a call like a day or two later. And I'm like, I just couldn't sleep. I just wanted to see what it was all about, And I also, for all these, top of the funnel ebooks that you put out, to download this free ebook, 30-page, beautiful, whatever. It's no charge. I haven't seen many of those convert when it gets down to an actual sale. I mean, the majority will never convert. People they see, oh, that paid ad worked because somebody finally hit it. It's, but yeah, after 40 touches, they finally hit it to get to you. But, some companies will say, oh, we got to throw more money into this. If anything, the way I am looking at this is that you can actually bring marketing budgets down by doing certain things, by doing that advocacy, that company-wide advocacy, by, doing podcasts. Podcasts are not expensive to get going, get them off the ground. You could do all these different things that don't cost as much as throwing money at, LinkedIn is a very expensive platform if you want to advertise on LinkedIn. They all are. It's not cheap. Paid ads on Google, please. I mean, the clicks, the everything, it costs money. But you can knock that down a little bit, especially if they want to reduce your marketing budget. And, some people are just afraid to do that. They're scared. And they're saying, oh, we're not putting ourselves out there.
Scott, it's interesting, no matter where the market's at, 2024 or 08, right? You've been through both of them. It's always just a simple common sense question I have. Hey, things are tight. We need to lighten our marketing budget, or whatever we're doing, we need to tighten it up. I'm just like, let's close the doors. Well, what do we?
What do you
Are we?
exactly? What do I
Are
mean?
we?
Well, yeah,
Are we
let's
planning on
stop.
being
Let's hold on to
open
what. Let's take care of what we
next
got.
year?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
take
let's
care
just
of what we
say, let's
got.
just go ahead and just close the doors,
You
and
know,
let's not cut this and cut that. Are you planning on being open in the next year? Like, what is your? I mean, what are you thinking? Yeah, let go of people if you have to. Do whatever,
yeah,
but like stopping and then thinking that you can just start back in a
right.
year where you left off it's not very
No,
smart, and a lot of people think that way, and it just
exactly,
blows my mind. I'm just
exactly.
like, wow.
And
um
one of the biggest things that I always run into is a company's customer service, a company that is all in and all positive and takes care of the customers. They're not outsourcing these things to different people. you know if they're leaving out the back door and we're bringing new people in the front door, they're saying, well, we haven't grown, so get rid of marketing's not doing anything, obviously. Yeah, have you looked at how many you lost? And that's not the way. You take care of your customers, and if you take care of them, they'll stay with you, and then let marketing help you grow. That's the idea. And using those customers, working with those customers. So, the little videos. I mean, it used to be, and it still is in some cases, people put huge budgets into, video, and let's, get this person on a video testimonial, which I'm a big believer in, but I'm a bigger believer in a testimonial that just comes off a quick 30-second recording on an iPhone.
Yeah.
It's
Got
it's it's real. It's not staged. It comes from the heart. And that kind of thing will help bring in new customers, but you can't lose the old customers. I was working with a company, and I was helping them with an ABM campaign, and we were down to like 1-to-1 at the end. And I got like a message from somebody. I was doing a global thing in Japan, and he said, you got to lay off some of those touches right now. It's like, wow, what's going on? And he said, well, I mean, they're already a customer, but they have some issues, and we just got to back off for a little bit. And I said, well, what kind of issues? And he said, well, they get about 300 tickets of unanswered help stuff that they need help with. So they're kind of angry right now. Or you sit there and go, oh no, they hate us, or they hate us. Is that what you really want to hear? You know, you want a person to be ambassador for your company, an influencer for your company, to say they're the best. I mean, I was like that with HubSpot. I mean, I pushed HubSpot constantly, especially when it first came out. I did some early on beta testing when I'm not sure if you remember, before they came out with their CRM, it was just a CMS. They used Salesforce for the CRM. When they started to finally build and test their own CRM that eventually merged the whole thing together, it was just a phenomenal way of going about it. And it made it so much easier, so much nicer. And I was like doing a lot of testing on that early on because I just love to be there. And I'm not sure if you've ever been to Inbound in Boston, where they have their Inbound is their yearly conference, which is huge. And you just learn so much, and you get with people that are like-minded as you, and you just think about things and get new ideas you've never tried before. And that also goes back to my new idea things, is that people, should be testing and testing and testing and not being afraid to fail. You cannot be afraid to fail. Let's try this on a smaller scale. If it works, great. If it doesn't, fine, dump it and move forward. Which is why I love either startups or startup type companies. They operate that way, as opposed to big bureaucracies where you got to go through all these things just to get something done. And I love working with startups, and people keep asking me, it's like, are you going to keep doing fractional work? Are you going to go back to your startups? Because I had two, um, uh, I went in as a full-time employee to two startups, over the past several years, and, thinking, great, we can build this and grow it from the beginning and, get it rocking. And, one went out and one just shrunk dramatically, which is what it was. So at first I kind of got, shy about working with a company. Like, I'm just going to stay on the background and do some fractional work. But then I come into this thought process, I want to be part of a new company, or a growing company. Well, I just got some great funding and really help them grow and really help them build. So I keep going back and forth in my head. I'm like, do I want to do that? No, I don't know. But if they're open to new ideas, great. If they sit there and say, one of the questions I ask is that, how do you feel? I'm not sure how much you know. How do you feel about AI in your marketing? I mean, yeah, as your company, you're splashing it on the front page. I mean, if somebody uses ChatGPT, they're like, oh, well, we use AI, so this is all AI driven. And yes, in many cases, there have been there's some phenomenal companies that have done a great job with that. But if they say from a marketing perspective, how much, are you using AI? No, we're not. No, AI is not ready. It's not ready for prime time. And if I hear that, bye.
Yeah.
Because if you're not there, if you're not on it, you're done. You're done in a couple of years. So
Yeah.
I heard a quote one time. It said, "Change is not necessary. Survival is not mandatory." And it's like,
I like that.
so
Change.
often,
Say that again. Change is not
change is not mandatory.
right.
Change is not necessary. Survival is not mandatory. Or maybe I'm flip-flopping, but essentially the point with that, is that a lot of us were resistant to change. And with business, when technology comes in, especially like the baby boomer, my background, the industry I was in, a lot of people were the baby boomer close to retirement. So technology, CAD CAM, 3D printing, those kind of manufacturing would come in, and people didn't want to do it because they didn't grow up on computers. And so they're looking at it as a hindrance as opposed to the efficiency and the future of how it could future-proof their business. And these companies are going out of business because they're not changing, because they're not adapting, and their survival is not happening. And so it's like, to your point about AI, you don't have to like it. You don't have to think that it's there. But if you're not using it, you're not setting your business up for success. And the other people out there are going to eat your lunch all day long. And, Scott, you mentioned like in the pre-call, I mean, we talked about the evolution of marketing and demand generation, which is essentially what we're talking about here. But like, how do you see from early on, from years ago, how has demand generation really changed and evolved into, today?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question.
It is.
It's similar to everything we've been talking about. Again, well, first of all, let's go back a step further.
Or do you want me to, sorry, do you want me to ask you a more specific question?
No. But you can if you want. It's fine.
I was just going to say, like, what's changed in how people connect with brands and make buying decisions today?
Right. Years ago, it's everything we were talking about. It was email. It was paid ads. It was anything to build that top of the funnel. That's what it was. And over time, then what's the middle of the funnel thing? Okay, webinars, things like that. We can talk about that also because, how I've kind of came up with this mini webinar concept as opposed to regular webinars, similar to podcasts. Before, in the beginning, it was called inbound marketing. That was HubSpot's, they put that term out there. It was inbound. And then you had, and then included digital. That was digital. That was this, that was that. And then, everything kind of combined into this new term, demand generation. You're generating leads, demand. That's what you're looking for. So how has it changed? Not, from putting out those things of ebooks and putting out, blasting emails and obviously SEO, because SEO was, still critical. And back then it was, I think Jason and I talked about this in that pre-call. Back then it was the Wild West. It was the Wild West. It was, black hat stuff, keyword stuffing, all that stuff to get it going. And then, Google changes their algorithms. Of course, they don't tell anybody, but people try to figure it out.
You remember blog farms?
What's that?
You remember blog farms, Scott?
Oh, yeah. I was talking about that the other day. I was talking about that the other day, or I was talking about, I saw one. So I actually saw one today. Not today, but recently. And I mean, I remember virtually nobody doing it. The only thing that would happen in blog forms were bots. I mean, bots would just blast out things in those forms. That's what would happen. And in a sense, putting that stuff on social media now, on LinkedIn, for example, it's the same concept, but the difference is people can now talk to each other. So you'll put up something, comments will hopefully start, they'll hopefully feed off each other. You start looking into those comments, you start seeing who's commenting, start looking at what they're saying, what they're asking, not just of us, but of other people that maybe made a comment. They sit there and respond to them. That's what's changing now. That changed, a little while ago, but so what's happening now, again, it all comes down to branding your product. It comes down to putting that stuff out there. It's got, ambassadors for your company. that's what it is. It's focusing on people, like people buying, not what you're trying to sell them.
Bingo.
And that's what demand gen or inbound marketing was. Put it out, put it up, put it out, follow up, get that scoring thing down and call them.
Well, I think people are looking for the shiny object syndrome is a real
Yeah.
thing. People are looking
Yes.
for that next thing that's going to be able to get them fast results
Yeah.
immediately and move the needle, as opposed to everything
Yes.
we've shared today that is constantly nurturing. And so what I hear you saying, which I agree with, is that it's not a one tactic, it's not a one marketing tactic that's going to help. It's treating them like a human. It's building a relationship. It's hitting them from
Mhm.
all angles, providing value, 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 value.
Yep. Exactly. It's all about what value you give when you put all that stuff out there. It's all about being willing to talk to them, respond to people. The other day, I was listening to, obviously we talked about how big I am to AI and testing new models and trying new things. And I was listening to a podcast the other night. And this person was interviewing, her name, oh my goodness, I'm going to say Allie K. Miller, if that sounds right. I hope so. She is like the master at AI. She consults with, major companies, governments. So she went on this podcast to explain what AI is, why you shouldn't be afraid of it, and what is good about it and what needs work still and where it's going to be in years and so on and so forth. And how long it's been around. She actually mentioned it's been around since the 50s. Obviously in a different form, but it's been around for a long time. And, now everybody's afraid. It's like, oh, I'm going to lose my job. It's marketing, blogging, forget it. They don't need 5 people here when they can do it with 1. I look at AI, and this is what she was talking about also on this, is that AI is a tool. It's a great tool, and it can help you do so many things. And you can sit there and, put your personality in it. But if you're not still doing it, going through it, it doesn't give that personal human touch. And you still need that. So what's happening now? There's 2 modes of thought now in business. One, companies on the C-level, they're like, oh, geez, AI, it's doing all this stuff. Geez, we don't need 15 people in marketing. We need 5. It's like, slow your roll. You don't jump too fast into this. Just go slow, train, work, and then, move people around. People, they're going to need to learn. If they're not willing to learn, these employees, if they're not willing to learn, they will be without a job. But if they're willing to adapt and use it, it can speed up processes so easily, on so many different levels. You can ask you can ask like chat anything, anything. And I asked it, I keep it it's on my phone. I have conversations. I'll sometimes would sit there. Now, I know people get into this whole psychological thing and, it's like their own personal psychologist, but I ask conversations and sometimes I'll just sit with things. I'm looking at my chat right now, like, the other day, what was it? Uh, oh, I know. We had to get a new TV. Fine. I like Apple TV. We happen to get a Fire TV. I didn't realize it. I'm not into that, but I love Apple TV and I have the little Apple box and, had them for years. And I was trying to figure out just, looking, how can I figure it? It's not going directly to Apple TV. So I'm like, I call her Joan. I don't know why. I made up a name. We become friends, and I sit there and I'm like, Joan, I
Hold
got a
on, your
problem
TV?
here.
Your TV is
Huh?
named Joan?
No.
No,
When I talk to AI,
yeah, you can give
I
it its
just,
own
I did Joan. I don't know
personality
why I
and
did, but I
yeah.
did. It was just, I don't know where it came from. But, just say, I got this TV, I got an Apple TV. I can't fix this because, what's the initial thing you do? You just start Googling stuff and you're going through all this thing. So I said, this is the issue. How do I fix it? And boom, popped everything down, all the corresponding links, and I fixed it in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Fix it in 5 seconds. That's it.
So,
And that's
so
what can be done with everything. Metrics, reports, setting up campaigns. There are so many things you can do with this. The models, they're endless. And
So I
yeah.
think AI and teams, like with the teams in an organization, I come from a corporate background. So before AI was available to us, I had a lot of silos of responsibility. And so let's say analytics is one part, and digital marketing is one part, and trade show is one part, and print and collateral, and sales enablement. All these things fall under the marketing bubble. I was overwhelmed. I was overworked. and there's only a certain amount I could produce, that I could trade time for activity. When AI comes in, so if an organization can see, instead of the mindset of, hey, I have 10 team members, if I use AI properly, I can cut that down to 2 or 3 and save money on overhead from a salary. And if they switch that mindset and say, I'm going to keep the same amount of team members, but now each one is going to specialize in a certain thing, leveraging AI, that is the best opportunity to 10x your business, to where you're not shifting and saying AI is going to replace the human, because you can do that and you can stay flat and you maybe can 2x your business because you're lowering these costs and increasing your profits. But if you train people properly and understand all the tools that are out there and how to be more efficient, because you're exactly right, Scott, AI is only a tool. It requires a person to come behind it in certain cases and manage that, build the personality, build those elements. But your example with the TV, in 5 minutes it spit it out, you fix it, versus the old ways of calling customer service, of looking on Google, of finding, because even look at that, when we go to search for something, what pops up first is just the link that has the best SEO. It might not even give the right answer. And so we're reading it, and then it's a long page, and we're like, oh, that didn't help me at all. So now you got to go back, go to the next one, and it's time consuming. So I think if business owners could understand that aspect of keeping your team the same and finding the ways of how it can help it, you can move the needle massively.
You actually just brought up a great thing. I was talking to, I do a lot of networking. I like to, and not just networking, like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, but I like to talk to them. Let's chat for 15 minutes. Let's spitball some ideas. I want to hear what you're doing over there. I want to hear what you're doing with the company. Maybe because I'm interested in the company because it's really cool, but maybe not. I just read their stuff and say, hey, I want me to talk to them. Let me talk to this person. And one person said to me, how they're really getting heavily into AI and marketing. I'm like, are you looking to cut your budget for staff there, and he said, oh no, he said, we're going to do this and set everything up and then start to move people around that can have a specialty on this, or especially on analytics, especially on blogging, whatever, and doing all that stuff. And I was impressed. I was very impressed. I said, something, that's good. That's where a company takes care of their people, or at least that CMO takes care of these people, which I think is great. So I don't think you should fear the AI, I really don't. I mean, except when the robots rise, like Terminator. That's
Well,
when you're in trouble.
another thought process is AI using that to take care of all the busy work.
Exactly.
And
That's it. That's all it is.
Employ your people to have more human engagement, more human experiences, right? Because as the technology and AI rise, that human component, they haven't had that time. So we're talking about building a brand, and the best way to build a brand is with that human connection, right? Like launching a podcast, creating more video. They didn't have the time to do that. That 10-person marketing team, they were just like, just to the wall. I don't want to say balls or balls to the wall.
You just did.
You just did, but it's okay. I
balls
think it
to the
works.
wall. I don't know if that's, maybe I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings now.
You're aging us,
you
man.
can never tell. All this woke crap. It's like, oh, I'm flagged. Anyway, needless to say, they didn't have the time. So, like you said, nurture your people. That brand you're talking about, having your people post about your brand online, like, unless they are in your culture and want to share that, that's impossible. You can't demand that and it come out authentic, right? You can nurture it, but take that and shift it more to human experiences with your clients, right? How can you get them out more? How can you get them engaged more with your end users, right? With your clients. Use it as an opportunity to explore, right?
It's like having that personal executive assistant that can do your grunt work while you're focusing on something else.
More important, right? It's like marketing. Hey, we want to cut back on your budget, or we want to lean our budget back, or whatever. Or I'm always a fan. Well, let's hire someone internally. Let's shift some of the grunt work over so we can focus on more important stuff. So we can actually help grow your business. Pivot more, spend more. Yes, spend less. What I've come to find out is marketing strategy always aligns with business strategy. At the end of the day, we are business strategists, right? there's a root cause and there's a problem in the business. That's why they need instant demand generation. There's something going on in the problem that in the business that they need help solving. And I found that if you dig deep enough, you can help save monies in other areas of their company, in their sales process, in their HR, in their culture. Maybe they really don't need 20 people. Maybe they only need 10, right? Just to be upfront. Maybe that's the case. There's ways to cut and shave and be smart from a business practicality point of view to where you don't have to cut your marketing and branding.
Right.
Right.
People focus more on, when they look at marketing and sales, a lot of companies focus on, we need a powerful sales teams, which you do, but you need a more powerful marketing team, because the marketing team, they're the ones that get the word out. And if we're doing it right and you get that word out and you're branding properly and you're putting in all that content, like I said in the beginning, you want high intent leads. So I'd rather get a request for something 20 a week as opposed to 100 a week, and they're high intent. And somebody said, usually at that point, they're basically ready to go. It's just a matter of, are they comfortable with you? And let the salesperson sell, not prospect. That's it. And you can use AI in there as well. I mean, the amount of stuff that you can do with AI now is just, even with just simple ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it's amazing. I mean, I thought, I was listening to that podcast the other night, and she had said, what did you do when you wanted to fly somewhere? You wanted to do a trip for your family, set up a trip. Well, you sit there, okay, that's a lot of research. I got to go here, and figure things out. This person's allergic to this, so we can't go there. This person does this, we can't do that. They don't want it too hot, they don't want it too cold. So she just sat there and she was rattling off, what she put into AI, what she put into, I forget which one she uses, but what she put into everything. And it's like, and my daughter doesn't like this, and we got it, and we've been there. No, we don't want to go to Savannah. We want to go here. We want to, we want to do this. But maybe Savannah, maybe there were places in Savannah you recommend. And she spit the whole thing out. She just blasted it in there and kept going and going and going and going. And it basically arranged the whole trip. It just arranged everything. Gave, tickets and this, and get this, and this is the best deal for this, and this is the best deal for this. These are the greatest restaurants in the area. You mentioned that, you love steak. There's great steak restaurants in there. It does it all in a matter of what, And you could sit there and just walk down the street, talk on your phone, just do this. Okay, I got to plan it. Fine. I'm planning it, I mean, that's it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it makes life so much easier.
Yeah, you're spot on, Scott. I think we could, as we wrap up today, we could chat about this for another hour. I mean, it's like,
I can chat about this stuff.
Hour went by super fast, but this is such a trending topic, and not even trending. I mean, this is just the reality of business today. And but before we close up, Scott, we always want to give our guests an opportunity where if somebody wants to follow along with you, stay engaged with you,
sure,
tell them how they can find you.
Well, LinkedIn is the best way. Without a doubt. With all the stuff I talk about, I haven't rebuilt a new website yet. I took it down years ago. I haven't rebuilt one, because I'm busy working with other people. Because again, what is a website? I'm putting my content on LinkedIn. I'm putting everything out there. They can make an appointment there. They can request. They can do whatever. I still want to build one. And of course, what am I going to build it with? There's a couple of great AI platforms that will pop out of it, but I just haven't done it yet. So yeah, LinkedIn, best way. Email, which is in my LinkedIn. I mean, reach out any way you want. That's the best way. Yeah,
perfect.
I think it's what is it, Scott?
You don't even need to tell me. I'll drop it in the show notes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's either Scott. I can't remember, either Scott Wasserman or S Wasserman. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's one of those.
So just straight in the show notes, I'll have a link directly that'll take them to the LinkedIn. But cool, Scott, we appreciate you taking the time today.
You
chatting
too.
With
this
us.
Was fun. Thanks for inviting.
Great conversation, and to all our listeners, we thank you for tuning in to the Love Your Brand podcast. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening and joining us on the Love Your Brand podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember, share the love.